Okay, so you just say it differently. So I hear that a lot going from gym to gym. Not that I'm a gym hopper, but over the last 20 years, I've coached at a few different gyms, and what I've noticed is I've heard this phrase a lot. Oh, yeah, I've been saying the same thing. You just say it differently, and sometimes a kid just needs to hear it a certain way. They need to say it, it needs to be heard or said a certain way to where they can understand it. And my thing is this: if you as a coach aren't getting through to the gymnast and they are making the same mistake over and over again, it's your job to get them to change that. It's your job to say it in a way that um, gets them to see it differently. So we get frustrated at them for making the same mistake. Here we go again. Your head's out, or your knees are bent. That's another one. The bent knees thing. So if we keep telling them your knees are bent, your knees are bent, your knees are bent, I keep telling you your knees are bent, you're not straightening them. So unfortunately, what that does is present a little disconnect in trust, because the athlete looks to the coach as someone essentially who has all the knowledge, whether they act like that or not. Coach acts like they know everything. Gymnast looks to coach as if they know everything. The downfall of that relationship is when the coach refuses to change how and what they say as far as corrections are concerned. Um, I'm constantly looking at different ways to say essentially the same thing, or to it's not even I'm not looking for different ways to say the same thing. That's absurd. I'm looking for different ways to illuminate um, an agreed upon result. You can say it that way. That sounds kind of nice. An agreed upon result. Looking for different varied ways to get this individual who operates a certain way, has a certain mode of operation, whether they're a people pleaser, whether they're just a go getter, whether they're a bit slower in their process and are uncertain in their process. And then that's colored with so many ways that an individual responds and reacts to life, to a facial expression, to a tone of voice, to to someone's mood. So so I've experienced this numerous times where I'm looking at some other coach and athlete's thing. They go, "Hey, take a look at this," and I say something, and of course I point out the same thing that they're seeing, that the coach is seeing. They're pointing out the same thing, the head's coming out or whatever. Okay, I see what you're seeing. So what I do is I come along and I recognize what everyone's talking about. The mistake. Immediately, the first thing I do, and the first thing that I highly recommend that you guys do, is that you don't look at the skill or even the result. You look at the setup, especially if you don't know the kid. Look at how they look at their facial expression, look at their body language prior to the turn. So, so for instance, uh, they're about to do a pass. They're standing in the corner. I would start watching that. How do they prepare for the pass? How do they prepare for the skill? In that preparation is all the information that I need. All the information that is needed is right there, because right in that process they're either making a plan, aiming, and intending. That's always happening. The thing is, it's usually happening at a subconscious level. So what I'm doing is looking for how they're preparing. how they're preparing, where their mind is, and what their body language tells me where their mind is, because the body can't do what the mind doesn't order it to do. So our job is to observe the athlete, observe where they're coming from. And that's why I talk about locating the athlete. That's why I ask them questions that seem obvious, one, and seem silly, two. Where are we trying to go? Say we're tumbling. Where are we trying to go? And they look at me like I'm ridiculous. Like, what a stupid question. And they usually, say front tumbling. Forward. Okay. And as you go forward, where do you go from there? It goes down. Okay, so forward. We need to go up. So it's just locating them. Okay, I see how you're thinking of this. I see how you're processing this whole experience. And now let me help you organize that to something that will work for you. And that's the key thing. Find something that works for them. Oftentimes, as coaches, we tend to tell them what worked for us, which is good on one level, because it's a sense of relation. Now I can relate to you. As I struggled with that skill, this is what worked for me. This is what one of my coaches had told me, or my teammates, or what I observed. However you got that result, that's what you're going for, right? So we observe. A lot of times as coaches, we get caught up in our ego. We feel stupid. We feel smart. We feel like we know it all. We feel like we know nothing. So we're constantly struggling back and forth with our own self, our own sense of self-worth. So if we as adults or coaches or leaders or guides are struggling with that, or whether it's a struggle or not, we're going through that, we have to understand that those young humans are just younger than us, but they are us. They are us. So whatever we go through, we can just assume that they're going through as well. I'm not big on assumptions, but for the sake of connecting with them, I don't mind that assumption in that direction, because it's in the direction of connection and unification. Lost my train of thought. So need some lotion. All right, so ego, that's where I was. So constantly recognizing when you're in your own ego and when you need to come back down to earth and help this individual in front of us, the gymnast. And it's funny how we don't even think it's our ego. We just think it's how I was taught. It's how I was taught. But it's also, that's how you were raised. And, and we do things. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So we are quite literally a product of our parents, of our environment that we grew up in. All the kids that we're coaching have an environment they're growing up in, right? And if they're growing up in an environment that is unbeknownst to us, rather than, because I used to just try to figure out what's going on, just assume. Let's do it. Assume the worst. Assume that they're all struggling, going through some stuff. And if not, hey, even easier of a ride here at the gym. We have less emotions, less psychological issues to go through, and we can just physically, boom, 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 just have some fun knocking out skill work, getting stronger, getting better. Unfortunately, that's not the case for the majority of individuals. We usually have something that we're going through, or, we're operating in a way that is, let's say, detrimental to our success. So if you are not getting through to a child in the sense of, like, say some technical thing, Do something different. Be willing to do something different. Be willing to do something completely off, you know, off the charts, random, wrong. Be willing to do a bit of wrong in order to figure out what's right. Or if we've been only trying to do what's right, maybe we need to figure out what's left. And if we can figure out what's left, maybe that which is remaining there after we've thrown away all the stuff that we've been forcing, maybe there's an answer there. So being open, being curious, and always learning is the key to not being stuck, is the key to constantly having your gymnast progress, and is a key to figuring out, to problem solving, to figuring out the solution to mistakes, the solution to some habitual patterns. That is the key. Yeah. So constantly self-reflect, look at yourself, stay open, constantly learn about the body, because the more you understand about how the body works, and I highly recommend it's not from just medical stuff and just typical stuff, really understand how the body is working and moving. And I suggest, studies from martial arts, any kind of rotational thing, which is, there's tons of stuff out there these days. So yes, open up, be easy on the kids, be tough on them when necessary, and gain the wisdom to know the difference, because only you can help you with that. All right, that's good for today. Peace.